Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing 5 family-friendly games. These are all family-friendly games. They're gateway games, family-friendly, that kind of genre. You could, of course, play them with your game group. I do think that if you are used to designer games, you would probably find these a bit too simple if you are engaging with your regular game group on these. But if you are new to the world of games, or if you're looking for something for your family, these might be great choices, which I guess is where this review part comes in. Let's go ahead and tell you my quick thoughts on these games. I'm going to start off with Quartz, the dice game. I should note these are no particular order, not in order of rating or any of that, just in order of me grabbing them, timestamps to everything down below. Quartz, the dice game. This one was a disappointment to me. This is from Lucky Duck Games, and I was expecting a lot more out of it. I tend to like lighter games, the games that, let me rephrase that. I tend to like a lot of different types of games, but I tend to appreciate a good light game that is good at what it's trying to do, that gives you something fun, something compelling. Oh look, we're going to roll a bunch of dice, match up the symbols, and have this little quick stealing little gems from each other and gathering gems and try to get as many points as possible. But I want the hook to actually be something interesting, and in Quartz, the dice game, I just don't think I saw any hook out of this. To me, this didn't feel like a gamer's game by any means. It felt like a game that you would find in Target or Walmart, and I don't mean the good kind of game you'd find in Target or Walmart, and to a certain extent that is a little bit, what's the right word for it? It's a little bit gatekeeping in a sense, but I would say that this is a game that came out of the hobby side of board gaming, and it feels like a game that came out of the mass market side of gaming. I don't think you'll necessarily have an inherently bad time with it if you are someone who is used to mass market games, but as somebody who is used to more of the hobbyist side, I didn't see a compelling hook to Quartz. You roll dice, you re-roll dice, you steal gems from each other. That didn't feel like that. Don't get me wrong, any game can be made to sound a little too simple, but I think in the case of Quartz, it was too simple. This to me is not one I enjoy. I would put it as a 2 out of 5. There was nothing that was compelling about playing this game outside of the idea of gathering gems. The actual gameplay fell very, 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 very flat for me. From there we have Smores Galore, which Smores Galore is from Grand Gamers Guild, and this is one of trying to craft your own s'mores. In the game, you're going to have s'more cards as well as s'more recipe cards. You'll have some basic s'more recipes, and then some advanced s'more recipes, and then you have a grid in the middle where you're trying to direct the token to gather cards, place them into your s'more lineup in the order that you got them. Once you do that, you'll go ahead and take 2 actions, which have some degree of configuring and rearranging your lineup, but also of actually going ahead and claiming these s'more cards to get the points on them. There's a bunch of mechanisms going on as far as the actions you can take, how you can rearrange your s'more line, but ultimately it's all about gathering various s'more ingredients, lining them up in order, and fulfilling the recipes, the contracts, in order to gain points. I found the game to be very straightforward and also very luck dependent to what's in the grid at any given time and how that relates to lining up in your s'more. Again, I don't think there was a particular hook. The actions didn't feel like they were a clever use of actions so much as, do I need to mitigate or do I not need to mitigate, or did I get the perfect lineup of ingredients? I would say this felt very good as far as the general theme of it. Again, if your target audience is gateway or family friendly, this has a very cute theme, good art that enables the theme, enough decision making that there is some skill to it, but definitely a little lighter, and on the procedural side, I would give it a 3 out of 5. From there, we're going to have Avatar: Aang's Destiny. This one I debated giving its own full review, but honestly, I've reviewed the Harry Potter Hogwarts deck building game, and this is just the exact same thing, but with the Avatar theme instead of the Harry Potter theme, and some small changes, but the basic idea is the same. So if you want my full thoughts on this, check out my Harry Potter deck building review, and then substitute the word Avatar anytime I say something Harry Potter related. But as far as my quick thoughts now, this is a cooperative game that takes place again across an arc of missions. It is a cooperative deck building game where you're going to be building a deck to take down the various enemies that are thrown at you, and the game introduces elements as you go through it, adding more characters, more abilities, and making it slightly more complicated, adding more cards to the decks, so it does grow with you as you go through it. I would say the first 2 to 3 missions are very much on the lighter side, so if you're someone who's used to deck building, you can either play through those, because I'm a completionist, so I kind of do anyway, or you could just jump straight into mission 3 or 4, and just dive straight into the rules and cards that are there, because that will give you a slightly more challenging game. The game does ramp up in the challenginess of it as you go through it, so that the later missions actually do represent more of a challenge, but as you're going through it, it's kind of a little bit straightforward, but it is a fun deck building experience, and a fun deck building experience possibly in an IP that you like. I enjoy the Harry Potter deck building game very much, and I enjoy Avatar, Aang's Destiny as well. I'll say that I'm more of a Harry Potter person as far as theme goes, so that one I still have in my collection. I still have to dive through the expansions. This one to me is one of those that once you play through it, it's kind of, I would put it, for me it's a one and done, but only because I don't need two of the same game system in my collection. But I do enjoy it and definitely recommend it. I would say pick whichever game fits your preferred theme. There's even a Toy Story one that I have not played yet that is very much the same engine, but with Toy Story as the theme. This I'd give a 3.5 out of 5. It's fun deck building, it's fun to go through the enemies, it's fun to try to challenge things, and as you get through the later missions, it's actually a challenge as well. From there we have Happy Camper, or Donald Duck in Happy Camper, coming to you from Maestro Media. This is a kind of wandering around trying to collect various things to build tents and score points by collecting merit badges. Basically, you're Boy Scouts. You're Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts trying to wander around the forest, accomplish various merit badges, and ultimately get to the peak to go ahead and take a photo there. So you're kind of doing a few things to get points as you go through the game, but ultimately you need to gather resources in order to build tents in various domains, and you'll also get points for having the most tents in different terrain types. So all of it's trying to manage your own backpack and the goods you have in it, which will, the fewer goods you have, the more you can move, the more goods you have, the more you can do. So it's a constant trade-off of trying to spend your resources to be able to actually do things versus gathering resources to be actually able to do things. In both cases, you're trying to work with limited movement and or resources. The overall game has Donald Duck wandering around, exploring the terrain as you go, and then across those days of the week, you're going to go ahead and slowly take actions in order to gather resources and build tents, which will help you move around the board more easily. All in all, I would say this falls into a weird space where it's more complicated than I would like for a kids game, and it's way too simple for your regular game night or whatnot, which puts it in a weird place. I would never play this game with my regular game group. It's way too simple, both thematically and mechanically. But playing with my kids, we just didn't have a ton of fun with it. It felt a little bit too procedural, and like you have to go through certain steps to go ahead and gather resources, build your tents, and it didn't feel like there was a compelling hook outside of gathering cool new equipment. That's the one thing that the game has that actually made it a fun experience, which is there are equipment you can gather, and trying to figure out when to build a tent versus when to gather equipment. That's fun as you build up your tableau of pieces of equipment, but overall it was, again, just too much to be enjoyable on the kid side and way too simple to be enjoyable on the adult side. I would give it a 2.5 out of 5. And then lastly, we have Karak 2. Karak 2 is the successor to Karak. Karak is a kid-based dungeon crawler or a family-friendly dungeon crawler. This takes that core mechanic or the core mechanics of Karak and then does new things with them. So if you've played Karak, it'll feel very familiar, but also different. You are building out cities, you're exploring, you're gathering resources, you're trying to get what you need to take down the various enemies, rolling dice, building up your own forces. Again, if you've played Karak, it'll have similarities, but it's also very, very different. There's room for both in your collection. Ultimately, for me, this falls into a weird space because my kids love Karak. I haven't heavily talked about the difference of, my own opinion versus my children's, but I'd say that when you go through these, Quartz the dice game, it just doesn't feel that compelling in general. There's many other dice games you'd have to happily play. S'mores Galore has a charm to it. My kids enjoyed it. For me, I think it's a little procedural, but my kids definitely enjoyed it. Avatar, Aang's Destiny, we all enjoy that one, and Happy Camper, again, that weird not hitting a specific target audience just made it not enjoyable. Karak is interesting because Karak is the first one where my opinion does not align with my kids, which is why I'm kind of calling this out on this one and not on the others. You see, my kids love Karak. They enjoy the original Karak, they love this Karak as well, and that's important when you're thinking about whether this is a game that you'll pull out and play. Well, again, who you getting this game for your own group, for your kids, all of that. Well, my kids, I can tell you, they love this game, they have a lot of fun with it, for whatever reason. For me, I don't enjoy Karak that much. I think the original Karak is better. This one to me felt like a step backwards as far as my own personal enjoyment. There is a funness to kind of building out your forces, but the entire game feels way too luck dependent and not strategically dependent. It feels like you just wander around, roll dice, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The order that things come out in can vastly change the experience you have. The order of the terrain can vastly change the experience you have. I like the original Karak and my kids love it, and I don't really like this one and my kids love it. For me, I would give this a 2.5 out of 5 with the caveat that it is one that my kids frequently ask to play, which puts it in a weird spot for me. But again, my own rating is a 2.5 out of 5. My kids' rating is definitely a lot higher. And so there you have it. These are my 5 ratings of 5 family-friendly games, 4 of which I align with my kids on as far as whether it worked for us or not. One of which where there's a very big gap in our opinions. They love it, I don't. But that's Quartz, S'mores Galore, Karak 2, Donald Duck and Happy Camper, and Avatar: The Last Airbender, Aang's Destiny. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you appreciate this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.